Hello students, welcome back to the online session. Myself, Mrs. Meeta More, and I am your geometry teacher. You have already started with the first lesson, that is basic concepts in geometry. Today we are going to continue this lesson. Now before going further, I want to take a quick revision of whatever you have learned in the previous sessions. You have learned about point, line and plane. Can you define point, line or plane? No, you cannot define it. But you can say that lines and planes are the sets of points. Then you have learned about the coordinates of points and how to find the distance between any two points. Here I have drawn one number line. On that I have selected some points. Let's see point D. What is the number denoted by point D? Yes, point number 1. If you consider point A, then what is the number denoted by point A? Yes, -5. Similarly, you can select any point on the number line and you can find the number denoted by that point, and that number is called as coordinate of that point. Now how to find the distance between any two points on the number line? For that, consider any two points. Let's say point A and point D, and you have to find the distance between these 2 points. Then you have to find the coordinate of these 2 points, and then you have to subtract a smaller coordinate from the bigger coordinate. Now here -5 is smaller than 1. Then you have to subtract here -5 from 1, and whatever answer you are getting, that is the distance between point A and D. Then you have learned about the betweenness. Now what is betweenness? Is nothing but you have to consider 3 collinear points on any line, and then you have to find the distance between PQ. Then you have to find distance between QR. You have to add these two distances, and if this distance is equal to the distance between P and R, then you can say that point Q is between point P and R. That relationship is called as betweenness. Then you have learned about the congruent segments. Now what is congruent segments? If the length of 2 segments is equal, then the 2 segments are congruent. Now here I have drawn 2 segments, segment AB and segment CD. If you observe these 2 segments, the length of AB and length of CD are equal. So we can say that length of AB is equal to length of CD. Then we can say that segment AB is congruent to segment CD. This is the sign of congruence. Then we have learned about the properties of congruent segments. The first property is reflexivity. What this means? This means that segment AB is congruent to segment AB. Any segment is congruent to itself. So we can say that segment CD is also congruent to segment CD, and similarly segment EF is congruent to segment EF. The second property is symmetry. That means if segment AB is congruent to segment CD, then we can say that segment CD will be also congruent to segment AB. That is in inverse form. The third property is transitivity. What this property tells us? Yes, if segment AB is congruent to segment CD and segment CD is congruent to segment EF, then we can say that segment AB is congruent to segment EF. if you number these segments as 1, 2 and 3, then we can say that if 1 is congruent to 2, 2 is congruent to 3, then we can say that 1 is congruent to 3. This property is called as transitivity. The next concept we have learned is midpoint of a segment. If you draw any segment and if you divide that segment into two equal parts, then that middle point is called as midpoint of the segment. Here segment AB is divided into two parts and the middle point is named as M. So segment AM and segment MB both are of equal length. So point M is called as midpoint of segment AB. And every segment will have only one midpoint. Now the next part we are going to learn is conditional statements and converse. This part is a little bit theory, but don't get afraid of. It's very simple. Just understand it and try to remember few things. Now first thing, what is conditional statement? If your statement is written in the form of if then that statement is called as conditional statement. The part of the statement following if is called the antecedent and the part following then is called the consequent. Now let's take one example. One statement here I have written is the diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular bisector of each other. Now what is the statement? The diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular bisector of each other. This statement you have to write in the conditional form. How to write it? Divide the statement into parts. What are the two parts here? Diagonals of rhombus, and they are here the quadrilateral given is a rhombus, and in rhombus the diagonals are perpendicular bisector of each other. So these are the two parts of the statement. Now the next part we are going to learn is conditional statements and converse. This part is a little bit theory, but don't get afraid of. It's very simple. Just understand it and try to remember few things. Now first thing, what is conditional statement? If your statement is written in the form of if then that statement is called as conditional statement. The part of the statement following if is called the antecedent and the part following then is called the consequent. Now let's take one example. One statement here I have written is the diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular bisector of each other. Now what is the statement? The diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular bisector of each other. This statement you have to write in the conditional form. How to write it? Divide the statement into parts. What are the two parts here? Diagonals of rhombus, and they are here the quadrilateral given is a rhombus, and in rhombus the diagonals are perpendicular bisector of each other. So these are the two parts of the statement. Then write in the form of if then. So the statement will be if the given quadrilateral is a rhombus, then its diagonals are perpendicular bisector of each other. Now here if you can see that the part following if, that is the given quadrilateral is a rhombus, this part is called as antecedent, and the part following then, that is its diagonals are perpendicular bisector of each other, that part of a statement is called as consequent. I hope you have understood this. Now the next point is, if the antecedent and consequent in the given conditional statement are interchanged, the resulting statement is called the converse of the given statement. Now we have seen what is conditional statement, the statement which is in the form of if then. And in that statement, the part following if is called as antecedent, and the part of the statement following then is called as consequent. If you interchange these two conditional statements or these two parts, that is antecedent and consequent, the resulting statement is called as the converse of the given statement. If the conditional statement is true, its converse is not necessarily true. That means if you write any conditional statement and if you write the converse of it, then sometimes the conditional statement and its converse are true, but sometimes conditional statement and its converse are not true. Let's take one example. The conditional statement is, if a quadrilateral is a rhombus, then its diagonals are perpendicular bisector of each other. Here I have drawn one rhombus, that is rhombus A, quadrilateral ABCD, and the diagonals of this rhombus are perpendicular bisector. Bisector means the diagonals are divided into two equal parts. Now if you want to write the converse of this statement, how will you write? Whatever part following if, whatever part is there following if, that you will write after then, and whatever part is there after then or following then, you will write after if. So let's try. If the diagonals of a quadrilateral are perpendicular bisector of each other, then it is a rhombus. Are you understanding it? Whatever part you are seeing here after then, that you have to write first, and whatever part you have written after if, that you have to write in the later part of the statement. That is called as converse of the statement. Now here, conditional statement and its converse both are true. If the diagonals of the quadrilateral are perpendicular bisector of each other, then we can say it is a rhombus. That means converse is true and the conditional form is also true. Now let's take one more example. If a number is a prime number, then it is even or odd. That means here prime number, if you are having any prime number, then that prime number can be even or can be odd. Let's see what are the prime numbers. Yes, prime numbers which don't have any other divisor other than that number and 1. So here let's try to write the prime numbers. First prime number is 2, then 3, 5, 7, 11, 13 and 17. So these are some of the prime numbers. If you observe these numbers, you can see that 2 is a even number and rest all are odd numbers. That means if the number is a prime number, then it is even or odd. So that means the conditional statement is true. Now let's try to write the converse of this statement. Now how to write the converse? See the part which is following if, that part you have to write in the later part of the statement, and the part which is following then, that you have to write in the first part. So if the number is even or odd, then it is a prime number. Let's take one example. Let's try to find it. see the numbers given here. Let's try to write the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, can you say that these number, if the number is even or odd, then it is a prime number? So if you write any number, even or odd number, all numbers are prime numbers? No. There are some numbers which have more than two divisors like 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. These are not prime numbers. That means the converse of this statement is not true. So this is the example which shows that the conditional statement is true but its converse is not true. So in this statement, the statement is true but its converse is false. The next part from your textbook is about Euclid. Euclid was the great Greek mathematician. He gathered all the knowledge about geometry and arranged it in a proper manner. He first proved some geometrical statement in his own way, and those statements were accepted by all other mathematicians, and he called those statements as postulates. Then he used those postulates, or on the basis of those postulates, he showed that some more properties can be proved, and those logically proved properties are called as theorems. So what are theorems? Theorems are nothing but the property which are proved logically with the help of postulates. Some of the Euclid postulates are given below. Means whatever postulates he has proved in his own way, those postulates we are going to see. The first postulate is there are infinite lines passing through a point. Now this statement we are assuming always as a true statement. Means we are not going to prove this statement, it is true. There is one and only one line passing through 2 points. This statement is also we have learned in the previous classes. There is one and only one line passing through 2 points. A circle of given radius can be drawn taking any point as its center. The fourth statement or fourth postulate is all right angles are congruent with each other. That means we know that all 90-degree angles are congruent with each other. Now see the fifth postulate. If two interior angles formed on one side of a transversal of two lines add up to the less than two right angles, then the lines produced in that direction intersect each other. Now what does this mean? Let's find out. Now here I have drawn two straight lines and one transversal. Now here you have to consider interior angles. You can see that on both sides of this transversal we can have two interior angles. If you add these two interior angles, that means if you add A plus B and C plus D, and if this addition is less than 180 degree, why 180 degree? Because less than two right angles. Two right angles means 90 plus 90, that is 180 degree. If A plus B is less than 180 degree or C plus D is less than 180 degree, whichever pair is having addition or the sum as less than 180 degree, in that direction if you extend these two lines, they will intersect each other. So in this direction, that is A and B angles are there. In that direction, if you extend this line, that line, these two lines will intersect each other. So that is the postulate. The next point is, if you prove any property logically, then it is called a theorem. A property is supposed to be true if it can be proved logically, then it is called a theorem. The logical argument made to prove a theorem is called its proof. Now, whatever arguments or whatever statements you are writing to prove that theorem, those statements are called as its proof. When we are going to prove that a conditional statement is true, its antecedent is called the given part and the consequent is called the part to be proved. Now, whatever part is following if, that part is called the given part, and the part of the statement following then is called the part to be proved. Two types of proofs. There are two types of proofs, that is direct and indirect. Some statements can be proven directly and some statements can be proven indirectly. Now, what are the direct proof and indirect proof, that we are going to see in the next session. Now, let's move on to the last part of this session, that is assignment. Here I have given you two questions and you have to solve these questions. First question is, point M is the midpoint of segment AB. If AB is equal to 6, then find the length of AM. Now here length of AB is given as 6 and M is the midpoint of segment AB. We have learned that any midpoint divides the segment into two equal parts. So using that property, you can find the length of AM. In the second question, I have asked you to write the two statements in the conditional form and you have to write the converse of the same statement. I hope you all have understood all the concept we have discussed today. And thanks for watching this video. See you in the next video.